Welcome to our March work session. I'm glad to see all of you here this evening. I want to appreciate Tanya for helping us out tonight and driving. And so Tanya, welcome. Thank you for doing that this evening. And so we have 3 agenda items for you. And so Mr. Brimberry will turn the first one over to you, which is the Viking Success Academy.
All right, board and community. Tonight's one of my favorite nights of all the different board meetings we have. I'd like to invite up Mr. Malone, Mr. Boxell, Mrs. Brimberry. Come on up there, and maybe Mrs. Brimberry and Coach Malone, if you could set the mics. We do have we have a student here as well tonight, but let me tell you a little bit about what you'll hear tonight, and they have a presentation for you as well. The Viking Success Academy for our community and for our newer board members is a program we put in a couple of years ago to handle situations where kids were dramatically behind on credits at the high school level. When Mr. Trout and I arrived, I didn't feel comfortable with the programming that was available to our kids if they were far enough behind. And I was not encouraged, to be honest with you, with Mr. McLaughlin and I as we first looked at the cohort analysis of graduation rate and projected rate of not having multiple buckets for kids from multiple places in the school system in terms of the high school setting. Progressive schools have a bucket and a program for all kids at the level they're at. And so we began immediately looking at it. Mr. Trout and the board has been extremely supportive of us bringing forward different programs that'll help an audience within our school system. And the one of them I'm most proud of is here tonight with the Viking Success Academy. They'll talk a little bit about their program, a little bit about data, and then we'll take some questions in terms of specifics you might have for that, okay? So thank you for being here. Mrs. Brimberry, why don't you start us off?
That we work with and just absolutely love it. Want to thank John and Taylor for their being in the grind every day and doing what they do. They work really hard with these students. They give it everything they've got, and I just appreciate them and what they can get done with these students. So just a little bit of our information. So the data that you see, it's ever-changing. It has changed tremendously since I sent this. For example, we've had 60 credits finished since I sent this last week. So this is not just Viking Success students. This is building level. But our Viking Success students obviously work hard, but we've got 328 students in the high school that are working on APEX. We have not quite 1,400 courses assigned to them. And in our building, we have finished, I think we're up to like 714 credits earned in those. But we service, we've serviced 375 students or more, and I don't know, the students they're just wonderful. We've had 7 seniors officially graduate so far this year, and we've got several more working that way. When we took over, obviously all of us were new. It was a little rough at the beginning with the students because they had to get used to us, and we had to get used to what their expectations of us were. The trust that they had, we had to build that. I think I had somebody comment with Mr. Malone that there was a student that said, I really didn't like him at the beginning. Now she said, I don't know what I would do without him. So
I'll comment on that as well. I saw the first month in Success Academy as we brought in a very talented staff to deal with our kids. The kids that maybe didn't have hope that they could graduate because they were behind have an immediate defense mechanism of why would this program help me? Nothing's worked so far for me, and I understand that. And I will tell you that as the director with Mrs. Brimberry, Mr. Malone, and Mr. Boxell, they work hard on relationship building. And then when that gets in place, we work extremely hard on yes, you can. Yes, you can graduate. Yes, you can have a successful life. Yes, you can use this as a springboard. And nobody's journey is determined because of 3 rough years academically. And so these 3 people have some experience. I'll let them tell you about the other parts and let Mr. Malone and Mr. Boxell talk as well. But the idea of relationship building has to be 100% of it has to be the goal number 1 before goal number 2, 3, and 4 can take place. And I've heard a student sitting at this table say, I wasn't sure that anybody believed in me because I wasn't having success. And until she met Success Academy, and now she said, is it all right if Mr. Malone gives me my diploma? And that is called full circle. And so that's what that place stands for in this school. And so I want to make sure the board understands this. It's a very important prong, but I'm just so proud of the 3 teachers that are up here on their work that's getting done with our kids at Huntington. I'll leave this to Mrs. Brimberry to talk a little bit more about her data before she turns it on to Mr. Malone here.
I don't really have much more to add than that. Obviously, you can see the numbers up there. We still have a ways to go with some of them, but we're getting there. I've been meeting with groups of students, and ironically, that seems to be working very well with getting some productivity out of them. So, but again, going back to, these students, my passion in teaching is the at-risk students. I don't think I would ever do anything different than what I'm doing, and the kids have to be told what they can do. They always hear in the classroom what they can't do, what they're not doing, they're not going to make it, whatever. So we need to build that confidence in them that they can do it, and that they will, and they've been proving that.
Okay, when I first
Well, you hit the green button there.
when I first started, I was trying to figure out, I'm obviously made it through school, made it through college, and how am I going to help kids that are struggling in the classroom? And first thing, I'm a dictionary guy. I look up the word opportunity, and it said a set of circumstances that make things possible. And I began to realize that a lot of students that me and Mr. Boxell have, they have a set of circumstances that don't make things very possible. And so it would break your heart to hear some of the stories that the kids would share with you about life experiences that they've had that I've never had to deal with. I've never lost it. My 2 parents are still alive. I have a lot of students who have lost a parent, sometimes 2 of them. We have students who may have family members that have drug addiction. And so another young lady told me her younger brother got killed in a car crash, and it was the reason why she wasn't doing her work and was struggling in school. So it's things like that that kind of made me realize that I am doing more, Mr. Boxell's doing more for kids than when I was in the classroom, because in the classroom you're planting trees that you never see grow. But I'm seeing kids being helped, I'm seeing them make it, I'm seeing them graduate, and I feel like I'm really making an impact. And so that's important also. But again, as Mr. Brimberry was talking, everybody has their defenses. I have my defenses. And it took a month before the kids would loosen up, come and talk to you, and again, it is about relationships, but I couldn't tell you how you would begin to start that type of relationship. It's just something that just naturally happened. Once the kids know that you care about them, I remember telling them that I'd rather be down there with them than in the other part of the building. That's no knock on the kids in the other part of the building. It's just how I truly felt. And so, again, they're starting to buy into doing their work, finding a pace to do their work. And the coaching, both of us, is good too, because we have a way of encouraging them or letting them know that, hey, you need to get you need to get going, because we have this amount of weeks left. You have this many credits to complete, and so we got to get going.
Yeah, relationships are the biggest thing, and I know we've said this multiple times already, but it doesn't always mean being their best friend either, though. Sometimes you got to be hard on them. Like Coach Malone and I are both coaches. I coach football. Coach Malone's track and basketball. And like I said, sometimes you got to kick them in the butt a little bit. But that's good for them, and there's a lot of positives that come out of that. And I think eventually kids recognize that. And like when Mr. Brimberry and Mrs. Brimberry have said that once they understand that they can do it, and that someone's behind them, and that someone believes in them, then they can do a lot. Like we have a lot of kids that have made up 20 credits. We have probably, even the kids that have graduated early already have made up 19. What's the leaderboard at right now? 24 credits in a semester and a half. It's pretty impressive, I think. And so, those kids, they've been through a lot single-parent households, living with grandparents, maybe living with aunt and uncles. We have a pair of boys that are brothers that don't live together. So, yeah, like Mr. Malone said, unbelievable circumstances that some of these kids in the community come from. And just takes a little bit of positive reinforcement to get them going.
All right, I'd ask our two students that joined us. I know I've talked to both these people in the last week. One was beaming over there on the very end from, I believe you're ready to graduate, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he was showing it by bouncing around the room a little bit when I walked in there, Mr. Trout. And so if you guys could make sure the green button's on, and then introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit.
Hello, I'm Kristen Slusser. I'm a part of... Can you hear me now? Okay, perfect. I'm Kristen Slusser. I'm a part of the Viking Success Program. I have written down a little bit of my story if you would like me to go ahead and share. At the end of my junior year, I got told that I only had 11 credits and I wasn't going to be able to graduate with the rest of my class. And so I had a conversation with my guidance counselor, and she had told me about the program, and I was like, okay, it's going to be a lot of hard work, but I can do it. And now I'm graduating on time in May, and I'm very proud of myself. And without this program, I wouldn't be able to go on with my career and go to cosmetology school. I would have to figure it out some other way. But this program has such a positive effect on us kids, because a lot of us kids got told that we would never do it. And like Mr. Brimberry said, a lot of us thought nobody believed in us until we met these lovely three people. But yeah, like I said, I'm almost done and I'll be graduating on time, thankfully. But yeah, that's my story and all I have written down, unfortunately. So.
And you did very well. Thank you for being here tonight. Wonderful.
So my name's Lennon Dieter. I wrote down basically my time in there, how it went, and how I felt about it. So to start, I kept switching back and forth between online and regular school because we kept moving around all the time. And once I buckled down in regular school, they put me in that program to make up the credits I lost. But my time in the Viking Success Program was incredible. From the start, Mr. Malone and Mr. Boxall were not just teachers. They truly cared about helping us succeed. Their support and encouragement made all the difference, allowing me to graduate early. At first, I struggled, arriving halfway through the year and barely making any progress. But Mr. Malone gave me simple advice, and it was to stay on top of my work and I'd see enrollments drop. He was right. As I chipped away from all my enrollments, I saw the numbers drop, and it really motivated me to keep going. What also engaged me was the bond I built with my teachers. Talking to Mr. Malone and Mr. Boxall about football, and parlays. It really, made my time enjoyable there. So I appreciate them for that. The connection with them really made a difference. It made the class enjoyable, kept me focused. Viking Success is an incredible program. I really hope that people keep it a part of this school for years to come, because it helped me out a lot. I was 14 credits behind, and it helped me build it up in just a couple weeks. So that was great. I just want to say a big thank you to Mr. Malone and Mr. Boxall and Mrs. Brimberry for helping me get there and graduate early. So thank you, guys.
Very well done. Board, and any of us, if you have any specific questions for these three teachers or our two students, now is a great time, and I'm really, really proud to see our two students here tonight. There's 75 or 80 that are currently at some capacity involved, but these two drew the short straw, and we asked them to come, and so I appreciate you guys being here tonight.
Chuck, what I'm gonna say here is, when I come on as a board member, we had none of this. And with Brian Warpup and Matt Roth and me, we fought to build the Career Center because we were looking at not every kid's fit to go to college. And I thank God, I talk loud enough, I don't need it. I thank God that you guys are looking after the kids to get them out of this high school. We are so thankful I was a board that you're doing what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing, because I've lived in this community my whole life. I've been on this board 10 years now, and we tend to overlook things. We were worried about, every kid's not going to college, but you guys went on, and now you're taking care of every kid to make sure they have that opportunity to at least do something after school. And I thank God that we have you guys, and it makes me proud to sit in this seat that you're teaching our kids.
I just want to say you guys are inspirational. I mean, this is just a great couple of stories, and you did great, both of you. Speaking in front of people can be kind of a freak out, and this you guys did fantastic. Good luck to you, and all the best. And we'd love to have you come back and visit our board meetings, because they're so exciting, of course, and share later when you guys are more successful too.
Yeah, I'd also like to ditto. I don't think thanks is probably enough for the staff members, but because it sounds like you guys are just nailing it, and thank you is probably not enough, but thank you for everything you do, and thank you for caring. I got 3 kids. 2 were college kids, great students, and I got one that he was like you guys. I mean, he only did what he had to do, and so I can relate to these guys, and appreciate all your extra efforts to help them graduate, and congratulations, and I really appreciate everything.
Congratulations to all of you. This is fantastic. To the board that was here previously, and the superintendent and everyone, the teachers that put this together, Mr. Brimberry, this is fantastic. To the teachers and what you're pouring into these students, and to the students for working so hard, it's just amazing to see. If I ask you if there was one thing that you could have today for that program or for your success, what would it be? Who would like to share? One thing, just one thing that you could have to help for success.
Well, one of the things I would say, our classroom, there's nothing wrong with the room itself, but, something that we could do to celebrate more. Right now, we take cats, and we let them write their name on it. We put them on the wall, and they're across that. Just something to go a little, for them to set a goal to reach. We try to ask them what are some things we can do with our classroom to make it more aesthetic, and them wanting to be there more. Because, we're getting breakfast for them at this present time. There's some other things, because we have some kids that are down there all day, and no one's going to stare at a computer all day long
That's
So
right.
there's just some comfort things that we think about that we would like to have. Now, what those things are, I couldn't tell you, but I just think about the environment of the classroom.
Very good. Somebody else? Kids?
Oh, yeah.
She's got an idea.
I think I agree with Mr. Malone. The comfort aspect, especially with most of us being down there most of the day, would be wonderful. But we're good right now. We got nice chairs and stuff. But like just to make it so it's not like the same four walls kind of situation. But yeah, I don't know. I just think the comfort aspect of everything for most of us that are down there most of the day.
So, like I said, growing the bond with their students, I feel like that really helps out a lot too. And the football talks, like I mentioned too, that helped comfort me and get me relaxed in there instead of being stressed about all my work. So, I feel like if they continue to grow bonds and get some more like decorations, change up the room a little bit from here and then, that'll really help people focus and buckle down.
Not to be a broken record. I'm giving a chance for him to turn it down. It's Mike 6. All right, let's see if that'll work. I just want to thank you all for showing up tonight. Last year, we had a presentation as well. And I was really energized after that presentation. And then we hired the person in charge to be a assistant principal, and I was worried what was going to happen next. So it's great to hear that the program is continuing to grow. I can't wait to see what happens next year with you guys as you continue to grow. To the students, as Mr. Melcher had said, I had a child that I wish this program was here when he graduated as well. I wish you the best of luck in everything that you do. Continue on this. I hope you take the skills that you learned here and move forward with that. And I look forward to hearing what goes on with you guys in the future. The best to you, and do that. Part of the reason I'm a school board member is because someone said that they wanted to do a diploma. I will more than gratefully get out of the way to have someone else hand you the diploma as well. And I look forward to seeing you all at graduation. It's part of the best thing that we do here. We do a lot of other stuff, but truly that's one of the best days that we get to do. So I look forward to seeing you guys on that day, and I can't wait to do that. So congratulations. And to Mr. Trout, Mr. Brimberry, keep up bringing great stories like this, because I like this. This is what we need to do, and this is what we need to celebrate in this community.
You bet. Thank you.
I had a couple questions about the programming. So on your one paper, so I'm assuming, but I don't know, so you have VSA. So what's VSA? Virtual Viking
Academy.
Success Academy.
Yep.
Okay. So then it says 4 to 7 pods and then 1 to 3 pods. So is that classes?
Okay, so the 4 to 7 is the periods.
Okay.
We have students in there 4 to 7 periods a day, and we have students in there 1 to 3.
Okay.
So that's just to help us distinguish the credits and a little bit.
So is then the independent the all day?
Okay, so the independent students, we have several buckets on this paper. The independent students are students, mostly seniors, who their schedule is full of AP courses and they couldn't get a single class in. So we put them on Apex. That it doesn't have to be a dual credit class, it could be an elective or whatever. So we actually have 141 students that are working independently out of their 7 periods a day. And we have, that it could be that they're a half day at the Learning Center and they're in person the rest of their day and they need that extra period, or they work or whatever. So we are fortunate that we can offer this program to such a variety of students. Because we're seeing less non-traditional students now, and so we have to find a way to get their credits and get them graduated. And so So we do have different buckets. We have a group of virtual students who work mostly from home. We do have some that are half-day students virtually, and then they go to the Learning Center, or, maybe they work here half-day and virtual half-day. And then the special education students, I also help oversee their Apex accounts, but they've got, their teacher of records, and they've got people, but I do help facilitate some of the behind the scenes on, adding classes and those kind of things. So, to say that this program and we're a part of a large group, and it takes a lot to get all these kids caught up and graduated. So.
Sure. So the 13th, I'm assuming that's last year's senior that failed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. 3 of the 13 students are special ed students, so they just needed some extra time to finish. We did have a young man who came back to finish on Apex because he wanted to get a job in Marion at the Walmart distribution center or something. Well, he couldn't do that because he didn't have a diploma, so he thought better of it and said, I need to come back and finish. So we are getting people like that coming back and wanting to finish as well.
And then the SE.
And that's the special education students.
Mr. Melcher, your question is excellent. You're going to get some more information on our next presentation on virtual education platforms to consider, and what has become clearly obvious to Mr. Trout, Dr. Diggets, and myself is we have 2 jobs that have exploded here. One is our Viking Success Academy that has literally a possibility of 75 kids a cohort. And then you have the virtual education students. Well, right now we don't have a virtual education director. So those 300 and some students and 1,100 opportunities are falling out right now with our director. But as both programs do what they need to be doing, that next bucket will be a question here for the board to consider as a virtual director as well in the future. I say that because it is exploding on singletons, which would be maybe a dual credit at some other place. It could be a schedule conflict. It could be kids outside full day. Well, we don't have that person right now to monitor those 200 or 100 or, for us, 91 students. And so all of that is following in the same bucket right now. And the next presentation will talk about different buckets we could to do a little bit better job on purely virtual. And so your question's excellent.
So the virtual side of it, that's got to be pretty difficult because, that would be harder to build those relationships and that's kind of like talking to somebody on the phone. That's got to be a difficult task.
Yeah, so I communicate with the students via email, which seems to be the easiest, but I do make phone calls home, and so it's just to make all of this work, the communication piece is critical, whether it be by phone, by email, whatever. The students have been really good about communicating. If they need something, my door's always open, so if they need something and they stop by my office, I will drop what I'm doing and help them first. So
Thank you very much.
Okay, as we tie this up, first of all, students, thank you. It's just so great to hear your stories today, and I'm so proud of you. Makes me smile. Can't wait to watch you walk across the stage in a couple of months. It's hard to say that, but it's here and it's on us. Teachers, thank you is hardly enough. Your investment into these young people will reap a lifetime of rewards. And I am so incredibly grateful for what you do with these young people each and every day, and for you to come alongside them. And every teacher wants to hear this story, right? What a legacy the three of you are leaving. And I mean that. What a legacy. They will never forget you. And that's amazing that you're leaving that kind of legacy. So what you didn't know is that, and the board didn't either, but Kenny Butler does, we're going to get our picture taken with you, okay? And so we, being the school board, and they're going to get their picture taken with the five of you right there. And so your face will show up on the screens in my office every day now. So see, lucky you to have that. But thank you. We appreciate you being here. So Kenny, get us organized here. How about a nice round of applause? Okay, as we move forward here to our next agenda item, this will dovetail into what we just talked about, school board. For those of you, for help us out with the mics, you've got to really get that mic up close to you so we can hear you, okay? So the closer the mic is to you, the better off the sound will be, so just FYI for that as we're going through this tonight. So, Mr. Brimberry, we'll turn it over to you as you talk about our online possibilities here.
Okay, for the board and for your information on this, Apex is a part of a company called Edmentum. Edmentum has various different options for virtual education. You have your the one that you're familiar with and you just heard. We have a need for other options, and Dr. Degetz and Ms. Brown are going to talk about that next option. And then, Mr. Melcher, your question dovetails right into what are all the kids taking that are singletons, if you will, schedule conflict? What are the kids taking if they don't come in our building? Well, right now we have very limited options, and we're trying to expand the options for different buckets of kids, if you will. And so they'll talk a little bit about those options tonight and take all the questions we want. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to speak here this evening. And the table could not have been set better from that presentation, because what you just heard is what can happen when great people are equipped and empowered to be successful. And that's exactly what Mrs. Brimberry, Mr. Malone, and Mr. Boxall have been able to do. I would say one of the challenges, one of the ceilings to what they can do, though, would be the options and tools available to them. This is not a high school that we all went through or that was even in existence, say, pre-COVID 5 to 10 years ago. There are so many more unique circumstances, so many reasons that students need flexibility or options throughout their day, and we have provided a couple of those, but where we're missing, I think, an opportunity would be what I'll call somewhere in the middle between an in-person experience and a little bit more of that credit recovery option that Apex provides. And so what we're going to share with you tonight is something that I know I get to present tonight and maybe take a little credit for, but frankly, the tires were kicked on this before I arrived, but I have been caught up to speed. I feel that it is a solid option for us as we continue to put tools in the toolbox of our teachers and our educators. I would share with you that options not only are critical now, but they will continue to be critical as we move forward. I think later this spring, Ms. Brown and I will both return to you to share what the new diploma requirements are for the current 8th grade class, or the class of 2029. We have to be thinking futuristically, and I would say the more options we have available to meet our students' needs, the better we will be positioned to help them get across that graduation stage. And we can't continue to use the same tools that we have now. We have to start thinking about that future. This Edmentum tool is one that we would like for you to just learn about tonight. I'll share a little bit about what it is, and then I'll pass the baton to Ms. Brown, our assistant principal here at the high school, to share kind of the construct that we think that fits within here at Huntington North High School. Edmentum is kind of that middle ground option between the in-person experience and the credit recovery option. It is that virtual experience that affords synchronous learning opportunities. It affords some one-on-one instruction through tutoring with some of the educators that are a part of the Edmentum company. And it also provides a little bit more of, I guess, besides the synchronous, it affords some more supports academically. So if you think about a hybrid model where some of it is done independently away from that synchronous learning, where it's given time, given opportunity to meet with a teacher, it includes both synchronous and the in-between opportunities. Courses are 18 weeks long, which matches up really well with our academic semester. So this is less of a self-paced and more of a section-by-section, piece-by-piece process that would mirror and match our current academic semester. I will tell you that it is more aligned with and more aligned with our current in-person courses and more rigorous in terms of academics than the APEX courses. So for students that might need to step away from the in-person experience because they're facing a temporary health challenge, maybe they're at Riley Hospital getting treated for an illness, which we have students that do pretty much on an annual basis. Or maybe we have students that had to step away because of behavioral or discipline issues and challenges. This allows them to do that, preserve credits that are academically rigorous, and then when they hopefully are reintroduced to the in-person experience here at Huntington North High School, they are better equipped to pick up right where they left off, and these courses help them to do that. As you can see on the slide, Edmentum is not a startup company. It's not something that just has popped up overnight. They serve over 5 million students in over 43,000 schools, and that's nationwide. And so we have had experience with similar products and programs previously, but this one affords that nice balance of flexibility and rigor for what our students need. I will tell you, our posture and our philosophy, so to speak, as a high school is to place kind of our gold standard, so to speak, with the in-person experience for students that are able to do that. We hire great professional educators that build relationships, that give experiences in the classroom in person that can't be replicated otherwise. But we also recognize now in 2025 that's not a fit and a need that every student can satisfy. We also recognize to the other extreme of that continuum that APEX is more of a credit recovery option. This is a great, solid, rigorous academic option that many of our students can benefit from. So what that looks like more specifically at Huntington North High School, I'll pass that over to Ms. Brown.
So I'm a little choked up because Lennon hugged me right before he left, and he said, "You remember when I was a freshman and you made me promise I would graduate on time? I'm going to do it, Miss Brown," which makes me just a little perplexed, I have to tell you that. So Mr. Daggett did a really nice job of kind of laying out where we're at. We have a number of students who just come with unique situations that this is a little over 30 years for me here at Huntington North High School, and things keep happening that I'm like, I've never seen that before. And we've kind of been put to the fence once or twice to try to figure out how to help those kids. And I don't ever want to have a kid like Lennox come through here and we can't find the solution for them, right? The really great thing about this product is, one, it is a long-standing company, so we know exactly what we're getting, and we've been in business with them for a really long time, just using a different product. So it's not, when Michelle Brimberry calls them, they know her by name. They handed me a water bottle at a big conference, and they're like, "Lynn, glad to meet you." So it's a huge company, but their local representatives are really good to work with. That's not a small thing when we're trying to help kids. A piece that often happens for us is kids show up here in September, in October, in November, in December, and throwing them into the middle of your traditional chemistry class in November, not always a great fit, right? This will give us a way for them to continue to get a quality education and be slightly off sync with their peers so that then we can catch them back up. Things like homebound instruction. When I was a young teacher, they would send me to kids' homes. You're smiling because you know exactly what I'm talking about. I would go and sit at a kitchen table sometimes with a kid once a week for an hour and try to teach them as much as I could, and then somebody else would come in the next night and try to teach them. While I think our teachers are amazing, that 1 hour a week is not the same as a consistent through a semester with a licensed teacher who understands our state standards and has a given curriculum to support them, along with tutoring hours as well. And then kids who just have a number of life situations. It never occurred to me 10 years ago that we'd have parents that walk in and say, "Hey, we're going to be on the road for the next 6 months because my job's going to take me on the road, and so my student's going with me." Or we're going to be missionaries for a year and name the country. We've had that happen here. Can you support my students so they can graduate on time, even though they're going to be in El Salvador was the last one that I remember. So this will help us with all those pieces. Another nice piece is, along with the regular education, they also have service hours for IEP and our LEP students, so that if a child has an IEP, they not only would have that original teacher, the way we do here at the school, but they would have a special needs teacher that would come along in the virtual world. their teacher of record here at Huntington North High School then would still be responsible for them throughout till they graduate. That's a piece that is very difficult for us to support in some situations when a student, for example, is at Riley Hospital for a long period of time. There is a huge catalog of courses that kids can take, and while we think our teachers are best served for our kids, we also see this new diploma piece, and we know that there's going to be all kinds of pieces that are going to be what if for kids. And as we're building that for individual kids, this will be a nice support system for us that we could use in a relatively easy situation. I think we're ready for questions if you have them for us.
Board, I would add thank you to Dr. Diggins, Ms. Brown, for coming. What are we really talking about here, and which group of kids would be, if I were sitting in your seat, I would want to know. So the Success Academy kids that you just spoke with are kids who are dramatically behind and at risk of graduation with their cohort being their class. We know Dr. Diggins and I have a meeting I think this week or next, over analysis of all four cohorts in our district, in our high school. And so we're going to know who that group is, but not all of them are dramatically behind, and maybe Apex isn't the platform, okay? The ones that are down there were 10, 12, 15, 18 credits behind, and that's not possible. 7 periods a day, 2 semesters, some of that is not possible to make up and still graduate. So we know that group. Well, you saw Mrs. Brimberry's presentation. There were approximately 300 and some kids on some form of virtual education. Well, if 75 are any one year in the Success Academy, who are that other group, if you will? That other group would be, number one, 91 kids, 6 through 12, who do not come to us, and 60% more of their day is outside what we call brick and mortar, which is outside our buildings. The state will classify them as virtual students. So we know 91 kids, 6 through 12, are on a virtual platform. Well, the one we have that is in use is Apex. Not all of those students are academically at risk and may need a more challenging academic platform. So that group, that bucket, is important to have another option for. Recorded or live teaching online is this platform. Tutors is this platform. Well, who are these other kids? You said there was 143 when I looked today that are on what I would call a singleton platform, which means they've had a schedule conflict of some sort and it didn't work. So how do they get that class and still do all these other things they do? And I would tell you many of those kids are the busiest kids in your school. And that's another bucket of kids. Well, they're not at risk academically. They just are so busy they can't get the one in because they're taking 3 dual credits. They're taking all this stuff. They're in every team and club known to man. What platform do you give them? Well, the Edmentum platform, which is live or recorded education with a teacher, would be their platform. They know their schedule. So although we can pick it live, it can be recorded, and it's like a college class for them, but it's at the high school level. We know there are 140 some of those in the high school right now. Well, they only are on Apex. And what we're talking to you about is another bucket that we believe in has had more success than maybe what we've got in place already academically. There's another group that this platform will be marketed to if we approve this in the future here. There are 300 and, I don't have it in front of me, maybe 323 students that live in our county who don't go to anything related to Huntington schools, but live in our county, and they take another virtual online option. The state sends us that report. If you remember, I showed you a slide, and there was 14% of the kids that live in our county don't. Well, of that group, there's 300 and some that make up that 14% that are on another platform other than Huntington's. So what does that mean? Well, those students are not our students, even though they could be. They live in our county. And so what I would tell you is, whatever platform we do approve for virtual education, we will be marketing to those 300 and some odd students who live in our district. Now, what do you get from that? Well, number one, I think we should be responsible for all kids in a platform that live in Huntington County. We're the best game in town, and it's not arguable. Whether it's in person, we hope, whether it's a hybrid in person and a little bit of virtual, or whether it's not working out, but even for those kids, we have the Success Academy. But what about the true virtual? I'm not coming to the building, but what do you have for me? Well, this is another option that we would market to them. The tuition is $7,100-ish, depending on the state, the year. You get 85% of that for a virtual education student, okay? So we know what that money that could come into Huntington would be for those 300 students. And then I would tell you that what does it cost? And we'll present this at a future meeting if you so choose, but most platforms will ask for about half of whatever your state tuition would request because they're paying their teachers to teach it. It's a virtual option. This particular program is $2,500 per student for full-time virtual. Well, that's a cost, but it's also a benefit. So if 20% of the 300 were to come back to Huntington next year, and so you're at 60, you're going to get around, $5,000, $4,500 of that money for tuition support, which expands more programming and offsets more costs for multiple buckets. So I tell you that because it's not a one-stop shop. It's multiple buckets with the same platform, but it's a different platform, if you will. And so I want you to be clear when you ask questions, why do you need it? We need it for a lot of levels. One academically, one for singletons, one for kids that come in late, one for medical, one for pure virtual. We have 91 right now. And so those things, if I were in your chair, I'd want to know, why are you asking this? You already have a platform. This is more rigor. If I was Mr. Allen and the board members that were remaining, I would also say, well, you have IU. Well, how come that one isn't being utilized? Ms. Brown, in a very positive professional manner, this is who you are. How has that worked out with that particular platform for our kids and staff?
The difficulty, I don't believe, is the rigor in IU Online.
No, it's certainly not.
They had a stellar principal for a very long time who, as they often do, took that stellar principal and gave her a higher position. Since then, they've had difficulty finding a principal, and so we've had difficulty making that go as smoothly for our kids as we would like it to go. Also, Edmentum has a good deal more flexibility. IU Online is a completely asynchronous class. There are no live teachers involved. There's recordings, but there's no live teachers, and there's certainly not tutoring hours. So a student who was taking chemistry, for example, and maybe struggled, they're still taking it by themselves and doing some of that work, where with Edmentum, if you're struggling at all, there are tutoring hours that you can sign up for, and then you have a licensed teacher that's going to answer, not just recover the material, but actually answer the questions you have, work through the questions you have directly. And so that would make it a better fit for so many of our students than IU Online.
Questions for Dr. Diggets, for Ms. Brown, myself, anything to do with Edmentum and virtual platform? Thank you for listening to our.
Is this something we would start in 25-26 school year?
That would be the goal and the hope.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's your
I
goal.
think we're ready for that, and it does fill a gap that
Our AP courses, and if a student took the AP course with Edmentum, they would still take the exam here at the high school with Mr. Campbell. There are not dual credit courses available. It is always my hope, I've said this with every step of the way and with every change that we've come through, that as students become more involved in the high school, we could get them here with some of those dual credit classes, some of our CTE classes. One benefit Edmentum has is they have some CTE classes embedded. Now, obviously, I say this with pride, but it is just a fact. We have the best CTE school in the state of Indiana. Nobody can touch us. However, a kid's sick at Riley, we'd have a backup plan. They could take some of those classes with Edmentum and still be in line for graduation.
And Mr. Melcher, on a comment on that, Mr. Trout and I were talking today. So say a student needed an AP, those are $325 per semester per student. That's a side cost. It's not a full-time virtual, so there's your cost. For CTE core and electives is $295. And so your singletons that a kid might need, or due to his circumstances or her, those do come with a cost, but so does our Apex. They come with a cost too. Tanya works hard to make sure we have enough licenses for all our kids, but I would tell you that's a really good question, is can they? And the answer is yes.
My only thinking on it was from experience. I had a senior that wanted to take everything she was taking, but yet then she found out that, oh crap, I need this, I need a language, or I need
Correct.
extra math or whatever, and so
Yes.
I didn't know if it.
Yeah,
that
it would
kind
be
of-
available as a singleton for those circumstances, and the array of opportunities is massive with 43,000 different, school system kids. I say that because it is I don't know of a school district or state that is not very familiar with Edmentum.
So if a kid is in it and it's just not working, like he was doing both back and forth. I mean, if a kid gets in it and starts out, is it easy? I mean, do you switch? Who monitors it? And then can you switch to a different instructor, or how do you
What I would
decide what
What
they
I
should
would
do?
tell you is it depends on the kid. So if he's taken 6 classes here and he's one singleton course for a CTE course or something, or even 7 plus 1, we'll use your circumstance, then their counselor and if we had a virtual director would both be responsible. You heard Mrs. Brembury say we have 340 some kids. Well, that's a massive amount. I mean, that's you're borderline a 2A school, as Dr. Diggets and I were talking about when we're getting closer to being a school within a school, right? And so who would monitor it? The singletons would be if we have a director of virtual education and their counselor are both responsible. If we have a full-time, it would be a similar circumstance, but you have to understand, like you said, that one we don't see as much because they're full-time. Counselor is going to do the reach out, which is what you heard Mrs. Brembury talking about, but the virtual director or whoever's in charge of our pure virtual kids would be 100% accountable for that meeting, that parent, that communication.
I would add one additional advantage, again, depending on circumstances and student skill set, but take math, for example. Math is just hard in processing, and it's hard to do on your own without supports and structures from a teacher and an educator. So if we have a student that's not being successful in the traditional classroom or is at Riley Hospital, an even better example, to expect a student that's maybe facing chemotherapy or traveling or for whatever reason can't be there to be able to learn Algebra 2 on their own through Apex without the supports that a platform like Edmentum could provide, not impossible, but I certainly wouldn't want to walk that road by myself. And so, again, that's another support structure that's there. To answer your question directly, it's another layer of option. So if there's not success in Edmentum, which we think there would be, there's still kind of a next level intervention with Apex if needed after that.
Thank you.
And there's 2 other pieces I would add. There is a grace period where we can withdraw a student and not have to pay for that course. So if a kid is in a singleton situation and they think it's a good idea to try to do this online piece and they're in it for a few days and they're like, this is not for me, can you please find another solution? We could withdraw that student and not be charged for that class. The other piece is that we will have reports that will run on every student as often as we want to run to see how often they're in the class, their grades in that class at any given time, so we can do that secondary support as well. We're not blind until they give us a semester grade.
That brought up another question. So the attendance part of it, so I'm assuming that your reports that you pull would pull the attendance because the attendance is important,
Yeah,
not just for being there and learning, but it's also the state likes to see your
Yeah, it
attendance.
really, Jay does a wonderful job, and our principals, when we go synchronous, our attendance rates are, we know when they log in, we know when they enter, and so Edmentum would advise us on that policy, but I do know that we're not recreating the wheel on that. There are policies in place, just like when we do 5-6 days a year.
So I want to compliment Mr. Trout, Mr. Brimberry, and the high school administration for continually reevaluating what we offer our children and looking for gaps and finding improvements. I had hopes for IU because I knew that was going to fill a gap. And when it doesn't quite work out, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys identifying that Apex may not be the right fit for all of our students and finding that as well. So I compliment you all on that and finding ways, because what I think we need to do and continue to do, and I want to reiterate a statement Mr. Brimberry said, is I think we are the best option in education in this community for our students and for the community that. And I think we need to continue to do this type of work and find it and figure out if we have a gap, how we can improve it to make us that much better. So I can't wait for you guys to bring this forward to us to have a vote at some point. And I continue to keep doing what you do, because I know you all have a great, I've known Lynn for way too long. And I know she has a passion to make sure that kids succeed. And I can't wait to see what comes next. So keep up the good work.
It is slightly embarrassing that my former students have gray hair, I'm just going to say.
So I think that, yes, I agree that we are like the top education facility in this area, except virtually, and this puts us there virtually. As a virtual educator myself at 2 separate schools in the last several years, this is a great platform, and I'm really excited for us to have this. And I also think with all the new graduation requirements that are coming down the pipeline, this is going to be a game changer for our students. So thank you for bringing it to us.
Thank you, Mrs. Heim. I know you have extensive knowledge of virtual education. I appreciate the numerous questions you've answered for me and our process as we look down this road. I also thank Dr. Degetz. He has jumped in with both feet, to say the least, coming here at the semester. And Ms. Brown is the most humble person I work with, and she has a vast knowledge of different platforms for virtual education. So I trust their judgment greatly.
I had a quick question on the actual content of the classes. Let's say I have a student who gets sick and has to go week 8. How does the content of the classes in Edmentum compare to the content in the classes? Will it be the same weeks? Will it be pretty easy crossover?
So the curriculum maps do not line exactly to the Huntington North curriculum maps. So it would be difficult, depending on where we were in a semester, to make that shift. And so we'd have to determine what was best for the student and how much physical energy they have, right? And so, and we do that now with sometimes kids continue to do their Canvas work and the teacher reaches out and works with them independently. Sometimes we shift to Apex. Sometimes we take a break because they just physically cannot keep up. Sometimes it's a semester class that turns into a year-long class because we have to pace things out. So depending on when a kid came to us and what their difficulty was, that's where the guidance counselor, potentially a director, the administrative team, the parents, the kid, we all sit together and we create what's the best plan for that kid where we are right this second.
Board, one other item that I'd just keep in front of you, because it, again, services kids that have a different schedule or a need. On Wednesday nights, we have what Mr. McLaughlin and Ms. Brown and I would call twilight school, and so from 3 to 6, some of our kids come in and do an evening of school. There are a variety of reasons that you might get an invite to that. And what I would tell you is, but it's not always discipline, okay? So those options are there as well, because sometimes life is in the way. And so why do I say that? Because it's a virtual education, but in person with us from 3 to 6. I've done that since we got here. Sometimes it's Tuesday, Thursday, sometimes it's Monday, Wednesday, sometimes it's longer. Depends on what group we're looking at and the need of them. And I say that because I'll continue to say we are an exceptionally progressive school that is on the right track to be one of the state's best school systems. You have to market and understand your audience to the point where you say, well, yeah, but we've also got these 15. What about these 12? Well, these 60, these 91. What about these kids? What about the 12 in middle school right now? Can we do a hybrid? The answer is yes on every one of them. We want to be that way. And so I say that because Mr. Trout, every time I've brought something forward or any of our leaders, Jay Peters or any of them or their principals, it says, make sure you let me know how we do it. I want to think about what this costs. I want to make sure the budget works. And if it helps these kids, let's do it. And I say that because that is through and through right now administratively. So why are you seeing these types of little presentations on different buckets of kids? Because they deserve one. And the old method doesn't work for all kids. And so we're going to continue to be progressive, and our goal is, while this administrative team is all in place, is to become one of the top school systems in Indiana, and we think these programs help us.
So our motto is every student, every day, right? Is in our strategic plan that we just adopted. And what you've seen this evening are 2 examples of how we're trying to attack that issue. Some of us around the table went to high school a couple days ago, and it was one size fits all. Nothing wrong with it. That's just how education was done all those years ago. Now, if we're going to be accommodating 4,800 students in our school district, how do we do it best? And what you've seen this evening are 2 examples of how we want to help students for a variety of reasons each and every day. So it's my goal to bring this back to you at the March 24th school board meeting for approval. We'll have Mr. Brimberry spell out the finance part of this just a little bit deeper for you so you have an understanding. But what the 3 of them didn't tell you is that it might have been over a year ago that I was strongly encouraging at that time Mr. McLaughlin and Ms. Brown and Mr. Brimberry we have got to have an online presence. We have got to get into this game. What they haven't told you is that's about 12 months of work to get to this point. They have done incredible work of sorting through, figuring out how do we best. And I was kind of relentless on Mr. Brimberry at times of where are we, how's this going, what's happening. But when Dr. Daggett came on, it really helped us bring this piece to you at the level that we have. And so please know it's our intention to bring this back to you at the March 24th school board meeting. Please, if you have questions between now and then, please reach out to the 3 of them. Chuck's been over the finances with me. I'm extremely comfortable with it, quite frankly. I don't think that'll be a hang-up of it all, but I owe you that piece of it so you can see it through and through. So that's our intention. Any other comments, questions? Well, thank you. Appreciate the 3 of you. Thank you very much. Up next, and we save Mr. Thornsberry for the end. He's kind of like the closer here, right, Terry? Are you like the closer, Terry?
The first 2 have been really good.
They're pitching a no-hitter right now, so no pressure. So.
Do my best.
Okay. Terry has, wow. If you came to the open house last Thursday night here, or you went to the one over at the administrative center, we got to showcase a lot of Terry Thornsberry work. It was amazing. And so, Terry, we continue to enjoy our partnership with you. and everything that you have going on. And so what you're going to learn tonight is now we're going to talk about floors at Huntington North High School, as if we haven't. This is one of the pieces that we probably haven't talked about, our floors, but do your picture on, yeah, that's you, Grandpa.
I didn't hear anyone say anything.
Yeah. Yes, so Terry, we'll turn it over to you at this point in time.
Okay.
Chuck, anything that you want to say about this before we lead in? I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate Terry being here. He can go through the flooring part, and then literally, if you have questions on any of the other projects, tonight's a great night for it. You've got access to the best I've ever worked with, and we'll try to fill in any, answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Trout, Mr. Brimberry, I appreciate it. And again, appreciate the opportunity. And the projects are Viridian projects, and I have a team behind me that works really, really, really hard. I just get to be the face of this because they don't want to come and do this. So I get the short straw, which I actually enjoy doing this a lot. So I didn't realize I was going to talk about the other projects that are going on, and I don't have images, but anybody who wants to take a tour of the building after this meeting, I'll be happy to go show you anything that you want to see, because I see it a few times a week. So a lot going on in the building. So I'm going to go through the list of projects that I could remember that are going on. We've actually have over 20 some projects with Huntington since 2021. So it's amazing. When I typed up the list last week, and I was like, holy cow, we've been busy. So it's been great. So the large HVAC project for the building is on schedule to, again, hard and heavy this summer. A lot going on in the south penthouse, so it's the large penthouse that you can't see from the entrance. It's actually larger than the one you can see from the entrance, and a lot of work going to be done to get that work done this summer. Otherwise, they are working on tweaking and fixing bugs and other things in the part that they already have finished from last summer. So it takes a lot of effort to dial all this stuff in and get it to play nice, because it's not as it used to be, where it's just manual. Everything now is electronic, and there's a lot going on to getting that worked out. So science block and family and consumer science are complete. There are a few small little pending things on science block that are getting wrapped up. Doors and security, another project. We have some minor changes that we're making to a few things at the end to accommodate a few things in different parts of the building, so that's getting wrapped up here soon. Lights and ceilings, so if you get a chance to go out and walk in the hallways and look up, a lot of lights and ceilings are missing. In other hallways, you can now do surgery. And the impressive part is those light fixtures are only at 50% of their brightness. Yeah, so if you cranked them up all the way, you would need a welding mask to walk down the down the hallways. That's 50%. The classrooms will be at 100, but the classrooms have dimmers, so they can be adjusted according to the teacher's preference. So with lights, ceilings, it's actually piping as well, and a new PA system for the building. So that's underway as well. Restroom renovation, which is actually part of the 2024 general obligation bond. The other projects so far were part of the 2022 bond. Restroom renovation, we just met with the contractor last week, and they're getting started. We're doing submittals, and they're getting prepared to start construction inside the building. Tomorrow we are putting, this is out of capital projects, so we're putting Lincoln and Flint Springs roofing replacement project out to bid tomorrow. And also Salamone HVAC replacement project, which is very similar to the project here at the high school, is part of the 23 general obligation bond, and that project is starting. We've met with the contractor numerous times, just trying to work out schedules and phasing, and now that admin is out of the building, that frees up some opportunities to start working in that back portion of the building. So that's getting underway here real soon, especially a lot of work in the gymnasium is going to be done over spring break. And we are also working on, I think from the last board meeting, I came and presented, we're working on the facility assessment updates for all 11 buildings. So staying really busy. So all of those projects I just mentioned and the one I'm about to present to you are all on schedule to be completed by the end of this year. So this summer is going to be crazy. I mean, busy. For me, for
few people at this table, namely that man, and the other parts of the team. Pat and others are really busy. Beth, Rich, Mrs. Kitchen out at Salamone, just busy, and all the contractors. So there's just a lot going on. No one except for contractors and those of us I just mentioned will be in this building during the summer, this coming summer. It's going to be busy in here. Everything's on schedule to be done by the end of the year. We'll probably have a few things to tweak going into January, February, but that'll be it. So any questions on all of those to begin with?
You said 21 projects since 21.
20-some. It's like 24, 25.
24, 25 projects since 21.
Right.
Okay. I realize there's a lot. I never had put a number to it like
Me
that.
either.
Wow.
So this project we have talked about before, barely. It was on multiple presentations in the past about what projects do we want to do at Huntington North. This project, the cafeteria, and this flooring project was part of it, but that one always got pushed aside or kicked that can down the road. But then we realized, and Rich brought it up, this was a year or so ago, he said, you realize when we put new lights in, everything else is going to look horrible. And I'm like, oh, it'll be fine. Well, when you put the new lights on, you're like, holy cow, that terrazzo is really showing its age. But luckily with the terrazzo you have, it's real cementuous terrazzo. It can be polished and brought back to life because it's been waxed now since 1970 over and over and over and over again. So this presentation is going to show you what we're dealing with. So first slide here is the floor plan of the building, and then you'll see that in yellow are all of the hallways that have terrazzo. So we're going to go in and grind that terrazzo and get out the scuffs and the bumps and the bruises and bring it back to life. The green is either concrete now that either has wax on it, sealer, other things. And if you go back at the arena, you'll notice a lot of that's yellowish looking. That's old ambered wax. It'll yellow over time. So that's all going to come off. The blue will be new rubber stair treads for the arena. So it's very, very, very expensive to restore the concrete and polish concrete on stairs. It's a lot less expensive to put rubber treads on there, plus it makes the stairs safer at the same time. And then the red will be walk-off mats back in the field house instead of tile. So also if you think about back at the field house, those hallways that are in green are shown as polished concrete because we're going to remove the tile that was originally installed there because it's got a lot of stress cracks, it's got a lot of damage, and it doesn't look good. And we're gonna change things up, go to polished concrete, and I'll explain that more when we get into this. So next slide. So it's hard to get pictures of the terrazzo to show you its condition because oftentimes the lights reflect off of it and it's difficult to see. But if you go out and walk around the school, and especially in the hallways now that have new lights, you'll see what I'm talking about. So it's showing its age, like I mentioned, scuffs, scratches, stains, cracks, and uneven appearance throughout. Next slide. So that one you can actually see some of those scuff marks. That's just around the corner here out in the hallway that you come in off the dock and then down the hall. A lot of things get hauled through that hallway, and it really takes a lot of abuse. Again, same thing here. You just see a lot of deterioration in the concrete from just bumps and bruises over the years. Next slide. So this is at the mural wall, and there's a lot of staining along that wall. In some cases, there were lockers along there, which you'll see here in a second. But when they had to abate the asbestos that was under the tile in the classrooms, that stained some of the terrazzo outside of that perimeter. They did what they could to contain it, but it's liquid, and the terrazzo will actually absorb it. So they're gonna grind that out and bring it back. So next slide. So that's the location there at one of the hallways that go into the science, and that's where lockers used to sit. So you can see what waxing around lockers does over time to the terrazzo. So, and Beth and her team tried to clean that up, and it's going to take grinding to get that out. Next slide. So this is a condition that happens at a lot of the column locations, and this is just natural aging of the building. Concrete and terrazzo, both, like I said, are a cement-based material, and it shrinks over time. Concrete shrinks. That's why you see cracks in concrete, but that's also why you see these saw-cut joints, because we try to tell the cracks where to go. Cracks don't listen real well, and they do whatever they want. So even though that joint is right there in that picture, that straight line, it didn't want to crack there. So we're going to have a lot of these cracks filled and dealt with. We're not going to cut out all that terrazzo and replace it. There are some areas in which we are going to cut out terrazzo and replace it and try to blend things in, and then other cases where we have to go completely across the hallway, we're just going to change that color of terrazzo to probably an off, like a gray or something, a dark gray, charcoal, to make it obviously different. Just because we don't want to try to match everything perfectly, it won't look that great. So, next slide. This is the base. So wall base. If you look in here, we have a really tall black rubber base. That is a condition at the demountable walls, the walls that were built in this building that were made to move around, which never got moved around. But that's plastic, and it's broken in a lot of areas. It's got a ton of wax on it. And so we're going to take those off throughout the entire building and replace it with new rubber base similar to what you see in here. Next slide. So that is the rubber base that is in the building, and if you look at it closely, it's got a ton of wax buildup on it because you can't strip that back off when you're stripping the floor, and it's in really rough shape. So we're going to take all that out as well and dress things up. Next slide. So this is back in the field house. So the existing floor tile in the field house is cracked in multiple areas, which I have pictures of here in a second. And we're actually going to tear all this out, including the tile wall base, and we're going to go with polished concrete, text and graphics similar to what's in here. But I'm going to add a lot more to it. So we're going to have fun with it and really dress that up. So I get to have fun with wall murals and floors. So we'll see if we can get Gary in the floor somewhere. So, yeah, it is. I have fun with it. So, next slide. So that is, if you go back there and look, you'll find areas in which the floor's cracked. Some of it's obvious that it's the concrete under the tile that cracked, which then worked its way through the tile and shows up. Other could be weights or something that was dropped because the weight room's nearby here. There's other things that could have been dropped, hauled through the hallway. Next slide. That's one of the worst areas. That's actually all the way down to the concrete floor. So that makes it difficult to clean. It's also a tripping hazard, causes some issues. So that's why we're going to deal with this. Rich brought it up and said, is there any way that we can deal with this? And we looked at capital money and we're like, okay, we could do little sections at a time. Hey, why don't we instead do it as part of the overall flooring restoration project and do it all at once? So next slide. Again, this looks more like an impact crack to me, that something was dropped in that area and cracked the floor. Next. So that's just the image over here. The difference is in here, if you look, you can see right in front of us between these tables, you can see where the old tile was on the floor. Because this had VCT tile in it, it was glued down. We have a different condition for the field house in which it's all of that ceramic tile. And in lieu of just tearing that tile up and polishing the concrete like this, we're actually going to do an overlay on that floor so that it'll look brand new. So we get to start from scratch with brand new instead of old like this is. And then we're going to incorporate the red, the black, the logos. You'll see Ike the Viking quite a few times, I think. We're gonna have fun with it and really dress that up, because I know there's a lot of future thoughts about what happens with all the pictures on the walls and bringing that up to a more modern display, and just really making that space more exciting back there. It's all getting new lighting and ceiling back there, and a lot of that's already done. So it'll really look nice when we get to that point. So why are we doing all of this? It's obvious because the condition, the look, And Rich was absolutely right a couple years ago when he said you put the new lights in, it's going to make everything else look bad. It's because you can see it. But a big part of this is that with polishing or grinding the terrazzo, and then we're going to seal it, we'll never have to wax it again. So you actually, if you're in here at, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning, Chuck, which I am a lot,
Yes.
so you'll see a guy riding a machine around, scrubbing the floor every single day. Or Beth, I saw Beth the other day, right? So I think it's therapeutic. It's like mowing the grass. You just go out and do it. We won't have to deal with waxing the floors, which is a tremendous amount of work in the summertime when contractors aren't all over the place. And with the polished concrete, it's the same scenario. You're going to reduce the cost of materials for wax, buffing machines, scrubber pads, the manpower to get all that work done. We're also doing that same thing with the lights, because you're no longer going to be replacing light bulbs all the time. It's going to be LED. So that's going to free people up to get other things done so they can really work on the details of this building and continue to improve it. So that's my presentation on floors, and I tried to make it exciting as I could. So.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
The one other piece of this is that we did not talk about finances with this. Just so you know, we're able to consider this project due to the fact to you. Within that, we wanted to get this back out in front of you, like Terry said initially. It's been a long time since we talked about it, but we have room in the bond to do this, and while we're doing everything else that's going on here, this just made logical sense for us to bring this back to you. More details will be forthcoming, but we wanted to get this out to you today to put this back up on your radar. Terry, my question is timelines. What are you considering for timelines here?
Right. We're probably 75% finished with drawings already, because we hit the ground running on this one, and planning to have it out to bid. Right now, Rick and I in our office are trying to look at schedules and figure out what's going to work. But it'll either be the end of this month or the beginning of April, and it'll be out to bid. It'll bid for 2 weeks. And then we've already talked to contractors. We actually have a contractor helping us who did this floor, looking at conditions, trying to help us understand the best way to attack the issues. And then start of construction will be before summer.
Yep. Questions for Mr. Thornsberry?
The schedule is going to allow them to go up to December, and there could be. And we're going to try to tackle the worst of it, the demo and removal of that tile back at the field house during the summer. But also contractors, they asked me, so is this first shift, second, or third? And I said, yes. Get it done and get out by December. Get out of the building. So we can accommodate, and one of the contractors I talked to, they're doing the same thing at other school corporations, and we've done this before as well. If they have to, they can just cordon off and do half the hallway, and then they'll do the other half of the hallway. So they can work around students.
Best part of this whole project is we're getting out of the waxing game.
It is.
So,
very much so, and eventually all the VCT will be out of the classrooms.
yeah, so that was my next question. That only leaves that we only need to wax the VCT in the classrooms then, right? And we're going to attack that as we do the classrooms.
That's the idea.
Which is our next.
Which I've done.
Which is our next big discussion.
Yeah, I've done this for a lot of schools in which we've got rid of waxing completely in their building, except their buildings are not as big as yours is. This is a big building.
You know, I'm going to take you back where Terry started. That's why the facility planning is so critically important as we go back and update that entire facility plan for every building in the district. Your job as a board, it's going to be rather difficult, is beginning to reline up those projects across buildings and areas. You know, what takes precedent? Why does it take precedent? I've been so pleased with your support and direction and all the work that we've gotten done here in this building. It's been amazing. It really has been nothing short of amazing. But we also have other needs in other areas throughout our district. And so how do we go back and reline all this up? Mr. McLaughlin, Mrs. Smith, and I have already begun looking at bonds coming off, what's going to happen, where is it going to, what's that's going to do. I'm also going to be hesitant to give you a lot of that information until I know what comes out of this legislative session, because there is a ton of language in there trying to limit the scope of what we can do, how we can do it, when we can do it, even though we're not raising taxes and even though we're not doing all these things. There's a lot of language in so many of these bills dealing with that. So I would be really hesitant to give you any information about that until we know legislatively what happens out of this session. And so this, however, is not impacted by that. But just know, I'm going to end where Terry started, that facility planning is going to be something that we're going to be having lengthy, multiple discussions over as we try to realign what our priorities are in this district, including this building, but also all the other areas in our school district. Any other comments, questions for Mr. Thornsberry?
Can you go back to that first slide, the one that had the diagram on it? So in the gym, what all are you doing in the gym? I know it covered the green. So are you doing you're doing the stairs, but are you doing the top of the stairs, the flat areas?
Right, so the landing at the bottom of the stairs is concrete now, and it has sealer and wax built up on it. And then the stairs themselves will get rubber treads and risers.
Yep.
And then the next landing, the next step up, and then the stairs go up, and then you're on the rubber running track that's original to the building. So we're going to polish all that concrete except for the stairs. We're going to cover up the stairs. But we're going to polish that concrete, and that might be where you see the biggest logos you've ever seen put into the floor to really get that space what it needs, because those stairs are so drab and just no excitement. So I really want to dress that up and bring some color in there. So.
And then the red, the walk-off mat, carpet tile. So are you talking like carpet squares?
They are carpet squares. So if you go over to the admin building and go into the entry vestibule, that's exactly what's there, which that helps get some of the dirt debris off of your shoes before you track it into the building completely. But right now in those vestibules is tile and rugs. And so those work as well, but a lot of times those have to be cleaned, or you end up contracting that cleaning, and there's more cost to that. Or they get shifted and they're stuck in the door, then the door doesn't close. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen with them. So we like to use the walk-off floor tile mats, because it's like a thick scouring pad if you've ever
Right.
felt it.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
So what happens as we do the halls and then we get rid of more lockers?
The lockers are being assessed as we do this, and those, because we're talking about this project as well as future projects, and making sure that we have the proper count.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question with Mr. Diggett sitting back there, is have we right-sized our lockers for a while? And that's good.
I've had that discussion multiple times with Mr. McLaughlin, and we had that discussion again last Friday.
Okay.
And this morning I gave him the meeting minutes from Friday's meeting, and highlighted is, you need to tell me how many lockers we're dealing with and what we can get rid of, or what we can shift around, or where we can move them, and what makes sense.
Right. And it doesn't make sense to just pull lockers and do all that underneath and put them back, though, right?
That's why this future facility planning is just so critically important.
You've got me started to thinking about the future, John, so I'm just trying to figure out,
thank you.
keep pushing out there.
Yep.
And thank you for all that you do. But I do want to make the board aware, what Mr. Trout so nicely did not mention is Senate Bill 1 is going to, as it sits today, really affect how we do projects in the future if it sits the way it does today. So I know we haven't talked about it, but at some point it would be really good to talk about it. The specific part of it that I do not like, and I think we need to work on trying to get changed, is limiting how we do geo bonds in the future. I'm not sure why they're affecting that, because as I was talking to other members of school board members last Friday, that's going to be the biggest thing, because we use that to keep our tax rates solid, steady. And it allows us to do projects, small chunks, all the time. And what I have not gotten anybody to answer to me is why they're attacking the GeoBond and why they're doing that. What they're basically saying is, if we do a GeoBond, we then cannot go out and get another GeoBond until 2 years after that one is expired. And that will severely hamper how we go forward and do projects here at the corporation.
Which is why we're trying to keep the tax rate flat,
Yep.
which in turn, it will begin to roller coaster, which is not what anybody wants on any side of this equation. So thank you. Anybody else? Comments, questions?
I have a quick question and then maybe a comment. Did you say that in the field house, you're taking up the tile?
Correct.
Okay. Just a comment, not many of us sitting around this table remember the pushback from the community in the materials that were used to build this building and Crestview as well. You know, they were just too expensive. Why do you need terrazzo? Why do you need more? And I think when you look at a building that's of this age and what's being done to bring it up to speed, is that all? It's just fantastic that we're able to do what we're doing, and it speaks to using quality materials and having a plan in place that speaks to the future and what's going to happen.
I totally agree, and I am so thankful that at least the terrazzo you have is a neutral color that we would still use today. In some school corporations, we have buildings that are a few years older than this, and it has the most beautiful colors of green and brown, and you're like, that's what you have. We can't change the color. And terrazzo is outrageously expensive, but it is bulletproof as long as you take care of it, and the waxing has helped protect it.
Right.
But now it's time for a good polish and a good seal, and what'll look different is if you get the opportunity, the before is look at the floor with the lights on, and look at the clarity of the light fixture in that reflection, like in here. Wait until we polish it, and then you'll actually be able to see the outline of that fixture definitively, and it makes a world of difference. And it's going to be bright and shiny, and I'm looking forward to it.
That's great.
Well, you know, just like the students said before, of the learning environments that we are creating for our students matters a great deal. And this is one of those pieces where what we're doing in those hallways matters a great deal. I think that's what's going to be the struggle with what do we do next in this building and in the rest of the district as we begin to realign our priorities with this school board into the future. And so while we're able to get this done, I've had multiple people say to me that they are amazed that we are getting done what we're getting done in the manner in which we're doing it, and that's true. And I think, Deb, your point's well taken. If not for the foresight of so many people 50 years ago, literally 55 years ago, okay, we're literally able to do things that we're able to do in this building because of how this building was constructed. And so, and it'll be good for a long time to come, too. So it's very encouraging. Anybody else? Comments, questions? And then, go ahead.
So, Mr. Trout, one of your comments reminded me when I was here at the open house, there was a parent and maybe a 5 or 6 year old. They were standing on one corner of the science block where you have new lighting and a new hallway, and right next to old lighting in front of the library. And that young child looked down the bright hallway and then looked down the library hallway and turned to their parent and said, "Dad, that hallway looks sad, emotionally sad." And the reply from the dad was, "What if you were in here every day?" And he's right, because that wears on students. It absolutely does. And how you feel in a space, much like the students that were up here earlier, how they feel in their space. If they feel like they're in a box, then sometimes you feel trapped. So it is important to make the space as exciting as possible. So if logos and color on the floor, and people came in here and were excited to see the changes and the differences, it's still the same space. We just dressed it up differently. So,
Mr. Trout, one final comment. At the open house, which was fantastic, Dr. Diggets and your team, it was impressive. But I was sitting in the cafeteria, and it was alumni day here. I mean, there were alumni everywhere, right? Well, Mom was in here, her husband was in here, they're both Vikings, and their kids were with them. They go to our elementary schools. And she said, "I took a picture of this when I was this in this cafeteria this summer, and my husband said, "That's not at Huntington North." And she said, "Yes, it is. It didn't look like when we went there. It's unbelievably nice." And so they brought him in, and he was floored, and she was laughing, and she said, "This was so needed on an update at Huntington North, but now look at the experience these kids are getting." So it was a great reminder from a guy who took 25 years away from here. But the alumni that came back, John, were so thrilled of the work that's been done for the new kids and their kids that are coming through. So I thank Terry and the board for your vision on this. He won't tell you, but Dr. Diggett's, myself, Rich, and some others start conversations about 6 a.m. and sometimes 8 p.m. and sometimes on vacations, but the end product is fantastic for our kids, and that's why I did it. So I appreciate the board and the leadership on it.
Okay. Tim? Oh, sorry, Aaron.
I have a question on the flooring with the tile in the field house. You said you're going to put new concrete back in there.
It's an overlay. So
How-
it's a 1/4-inch overlay of concrete.
Okay, I was just curious how thick it was.
That'll actually help with some of the transitions because we have to make up the tile and the mortar set that's under it. So that it's perfect. It'll help it because we were trying to figure out how to deal with the transitions at the doors anyway without having to ramp up to them. So this will help offset it. Actually, the flooring contractors recommended it to help resolve multiple issues, plus give us a new look to that floor instead of similar to what we have here.
Thank you.
Good question.
Any further questions for Terry? We'll move on to our last agenda item. I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
And a second? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?